He didn't want to be saved. Not anymore. Not after everything the silence had taken from him and everything it refused to give back. Before we begin, tell me, where are you watching from? Somewhere quiet, I hope. Because this story, it begins in a place where even the wind seems to whisper instead of speak. The cabin sits a mile off the nearest gravel road, tucked between tall pines that block out most of the sky. No power lines. No signal. Just wood, dust, and the slow creak of time settling into the walls. Ethan Cole chose this place because nothing here asks questions. At 38, he carries himself like a man twice that age. Broad shoulders still hold their military form, but the way he moves, slower now, careful, like every step is measured against something unseen. His skin is pale from months without sun, his beard untrimmed, his eyes distant, like they're always watching something far behind him instead of what's in front. Around his neck hangs a single dog tag, dull from years of wear. He doesn't take it off, not even to sleep. Inside the cabin, there are no photographs, no reminders, just a chair by the window, a small iron stove, and a folded blanket on a narrow bed. The kind of life that doesn't invite memory, the kind that survives by avoiding it. And yet, he isn't alone. Rex lies near the door, head resting on his paws, amber eyes half open, but never fully asleep. A German shepherd with a coat darker than most, streaked with gray along the muzzle. 6 years old, maybe 7. Time moves differently for dogs like him. He still listens like he's on duty, still tracks every sound beyond the walls. Ethan doesn't talk to him much, doesn't need to. They understand silence the same way, deep, heavy, and constant. Outside, the night settles in layers. The temperature drops to just under 40 degrees, and the air carries the scent of damp wood and pine. Somewhere in the distance, a branch snaps. Then nothing. Just stillness. The kind that presses against your ears until you start to hear things that may not even exist. Ethan sits in his chair, staring out the window at the darkness between the trees. No lights. No movement. Exactly how he wants it. Exactly how he needs it. Or at least, that's what he tells himself. Behind him, Rex lifts his head. Slow at first, then still. His ears tilt forward. Not sharp, not alarmed, just focused, like he's listening to something far away, something faint. Ethan doesn't turn, doesn't react. He's trained himself not to chase sounds anymore, not to follow shadows. Silence is safer. Silence doesn't take anything from you, if you don't let it. But Rex rises to his feet, quiet, controlled. He takes one step toward the door, then another, his body tense, not with fear, but with purpose. Ethan exhales slowly, eyes still fixed on the trees. Don't, he mutters, voice rough from disuse. Rex doesn't stop. He stands at the door now, staring into the blackness beyond the glass. Waiting, not barking, not whining, just waiting. And for a moment, something shifts. Not outside, not in the forest, but inside the room. Inside the silence Ethan built so carefully around himself. Because this time, the silence doesn't feel empty. It feels like it's hiding something. And Rex has already found it. Rex does not move away from the door. He stands there as if the world beyond the cabin has called his name and he has no choice but to answer. Ethan watches him now, finally turning his head just enough to catch the outline of the dog against the faint reflection in the window. The fire in the stove has burned low, casting a dim orange glow that flickers across the wooden floor, stretching shadows that seem to breathe with each small movement. It is nothing, Ethan says quietly, more to himself than to the dog. His voice sounds unfamiliar in the stillness, like it does not belong to this place anymore. Rex's ears twitch again. Not sharp, not startled. Listening, always listening. Ethan exhales through his nose and leans back in the chair, the wood creaking under his weight. He has trained himself for this, to let sounds pass through him without meaning, to sit with the quiet until it swallows everything else. That is how he survives now, not by fighting what he hears, but by refusing to follow it. Outside, the wind brushes through the trees, slow and steady, carrying the scent of wet earth and pine sap, the kind of smell that settles into your lungs and stays there. Rex takes a step closer to the door, then another. His nose lifts slightly, testing the air that slips through the cracks of the frame. There is something there. Not strong, not obvious, but enough. Ethan notices the shift in the dog's posture. The tension is different now. Not alert for danger. Not defensive. It is searching, like he is trying to find something he already believes exists. Rex, Ethan says, firmer this time. The name lands between them and fades quickly, absorbed by the room. The dog does not turn, does not acknowledge. That alone is enough to unsettle something deep inside Ethan, something he has kept buried under layers of routine and silence. Rex has never ignored him. Not once. Not even on the worst days, when commands came out broken and late, when the world around them had been louder than anything either of them could control. Loyalty had always meant listening. But tonight, it means something else. Rex shifts his weight, then sits. Not relaxed. Not resting. Waiting. His eyes remain fixed on the darkness outside, unblinking, patient in a way that feels almost human. Ethan stands slowly, the chair scraping softly against the wooden floor. The sound is small, but it echoes in the tight space of the cabin. He hesitates for a moment, hand resting on the back of the chair, as if deciding whether this is worth breaking the rules he has lived by for so long. Outside is where things go wrong. Outside is where questions begin. And questions lead to memories. But Rex is still there, still waiting. Ethan steps forward, each footfall deliberate, measured. The closer he gets to the door, the more he notices it. Not a sound exactly, not something he can name. Just a feeling, faint and uncertain, like the edge of a thought that refuses to form. He stops a few feet behind the dog. There is nothing out there, he says, quieter now. Almost a plea. Rex's tail shifts once against the floor, not in comfort, but in quiet insistence. Ethan looks past him, through the dark glass. The trees stand motionless, tall and endless, their shapes blending into one another until there is no clear boundary between one and the next. It is the kind of darkness that hides everything equally. And yet, something about it feels different. Not empty. Not tonight. Rex lets out a soft breath, barely audible, and leans slightly toward the door. Not pushing. Not forcing. Just asking. Ethan closes his eyes for a brief second, as if that might reset the moment, return things to the way they were before the shift began. But when he opens them again, nothing has changed. The silence is still there. Only now, it feels like it is waiting for him to respond. The moment stretches longer than it should. Ethan's hand hovers near the door, not touching it, not pulling away. The wood is cold even from inches away, as if the night outside has already seeped through. He tells himself this is where it ends. This is where he steps back, returns to the chair, lets the silence close over everything again. That is the rule. That has always been the rule. But Rex shifts again, just slightly, and lowers his head toward the base of the door. His nose presses close to the narrow gap, where the frame does not quite seal. He inhales slowly, deeply, then exhales in a soft, steady breath. Not urgency. Not fear. Recognition. Ethan feels it before he understands it. A tension that is not his own. A pull that does not come from memory, but from something quieter, something that does not demand, only waits. He tightens his jaw. No, he says under his breath, but the word does not carry weight. It falls flat, like it already knows it will be ignored. Rex lifts his head and glances back for the first time. Not fully, just enough for one eye to catch Ethan's. There is no panic in that gaze. No confusion. Just certainty, the kind that does not explain itself. Ethan swallows, the motion slow, deliberate. He has seen that look before. Not here. Not in this cabin. Somewhere else. Somewhere louder. Somewhere he does not allow himself to revisit. He looks away first. The air in the room feels thinner now, harder to breathe through, as if the silence has shifted from something protective into something expectant. Outside, the wind eases for a moment, and the forest holds still. No branches moving. No leaves brushing. Just a quiet so complete it almost hums. And then, something else. It is faint. So faint it could be nothing more than imagination. A soft, uneven sound, like air catching in a small chest. Ethan's head turns before he can stop it. His eyes narrow, searching the dark beyond the glass. But there is nothing to see. Only layers of black folding into one another. You hear that? He asks, barely above a whisper. The question surprises him. He has not asked questions out loud in a long time. Rex turns fully now. His ears lift, his body straightening, but he does not move away from the door. He waits. Again. Always waiting. Ethan steps closer. The floorboards creak under his boots. each sound sharper than it should be. He reaches for the handle, fingers brushing the metal, then stopping. The hesitation is not fear. Not exactly. It is something heavier. The knowledge that once he opens that door, whatever is out there becomes real. And real things do not stay contained. The faint sound comes again. A little clearer this time. Not wind. Not an animal he recognizes. Softer. Fragile. Like something trying to exist without being noticed. Ethan's breath catches, just for a second. His grip tightens around the handle. Behind him, the cabin remains exactly as it was. Warm. Still. Predictable. In front of him, the unknown presses gently against the door, not forcing its way in, but refusing to disappear. Rex lets out a low, almost silent whine. Not distress. Not warning. It is urging. Ethan closes his eyes briefly, and for a moment, he sees nothing. No trees. No cabin. No past. Just a blank space where choice lives. Then he opens them again. The darkness is still there. The sound is still there. And Rex is still waiting. Slowly, without another word, Ethan turns the handle. The latch clicks, quiet but final, and the door opens just enough to let the cold air slip inside. It wraps around his legs, sharp and immediate, carrying with it the scent of damp leaves and something else, something unfamiliar. Rex steps forward first, crossing the threshold without hesitation. He moves into the night with purpose, his form blending quickly into the shadows between the trees. Ethan stands there for half a second longer, feeling the warmth of the cabin behind him and the pull of the unknown ahead. Then he exhales, steps out, and lets the door fall open behind him as the silence breaks in a way he cannot take back. The cold does not hit all at once. It settles in layers, first around Ethan's boots, then rising slowly through his legs, sharp and deliberate, like. The night is testing whether he belongs out here anymore. The air smells heavier beyond the cabin walls, thick with damp soil and pine needles, with something faint beneath it that he cannot name, but cannot ignore. Rex moves ahead without looking back, his form slipping between the trees with a confidence that feels almost unnatural in the dark. No hesitation, no second-guessing, just a steady pace, as if the path has already been decided long before Ethan stepped outside. Rex, Ethan calls, low but firm, the sound barely carrying past a few yards. The dog does not stop, does not slow. The only sign he heard is a slight flick of his ear before he continues forward. Ethan exhales through clenched teeth and follows, each step measured, careful of the uneven ground beneath the thin layer of fallen needles. The forest absorbs sound differently at night. Every footstep feels louder, yet somehow swallowed at the same time, leaving behind a strange emptiness where noise should linger. Branches stretch overhead, blocking what little light the sky offers, turning the world into shifting shades of gray and black. Ethan keeps his eyes fixed on Rex, using the faint outline of the dog as his anchor in the dark. The distance between them never grows too wide, but it never closes either. It is as if Rex knows exactly how far ahead to stay, just enough to lead, not enough to be followed without effort. The sound comes again, softer now, but clearer than before. A small, uneven breath, carried through the still air in fragile pieces. Ethan stops mid-step. His head turns slightly, listening, every sense narrowing toward that single thread of sound. It is not the forest, not the wind. It is something alive, something struggling to remain quiet. Rex stops too, a few yards ahead, his body going still in a way that feels deliberate, like he has reached a point he recognizes. He does not turn this time. He lowers his head slightly, ears forward, focused, waiting. Ethan's pulse picks up, not fast, but heavier, each beat more noticeable than the last. He moves again, slower now, angling slightly to the right, following the direction the sound seems to come from. The ground dips subtly beneath his boots, the terrain shifting into a shallow slope lined with low brush and broken branches. The smell changes here. Damp, leaves, colder air, and beneath it, something else. Faint, human. He stops again, closer now, and crouches slightly, his eyes adjusting to the deeper darkness beneath the trees. There is a shape ahead, small, almost lost against the forest floor. At first, it looks like nothing more than a pile of fabric, a shadow among shadows. But then it moves. Just barely. A slight shift. A breath. Ethan's chest tightens before his mind catches up, He steps forward, one slow pace at a time, until the shape becomes clearer. A child. A small figure curled against the base of a fallen log, wrapped in a thin, worn jacket that does little to keep out the cold. Light-colored hair clings in soft strands to a pale face, barely visible in the dim light. The child's eyes are closed, lashes resting still against her cheeks, her small body trembling in uneven intervals that match the fragile sound he heard. Ethan stops a few feet away, the world around him narrowing until nothing exists beyond that single point in the dark. For a moment, he does not move, does not speak. The silence returns, but it is not the same silence he left behind in the cabin. This one is different. This one is asking something of him. Behind him, Rex steps closer, his presence steady and quiet, stopping just at Ethan's side. He lowers his head toward the child, not touching, just close enough to feel the warmth that barely lingers. Ethan's hand tightens at his side. He had come out here to keep things away, to keep the world from reaching him again. And yet, somehow, the world has found him anyway. Not loud, not forceful, just placed gently in front of him, like something he cannot ignore without losing more than he already has. For a long second, Ethan does nothing. The forest holds its breath with him, the air still and heavy, as if even the wind knows this moment should not be rushed. His eyes stay fixed on the small figure, trying to make sense of something that does not belong here, not this deep, not this far from anything that could explain it. No, the word slips out quietly, not in denial, but in disbelief. He takes one step closer, then another, the ground soft beneath his boots, damp leaves shifting with a muted sound. Up, close, the details sharpen. The jacket is too thin for this weather, the fabric worn at the edges, slightly oversized for the small body it tries to protect. Beneath it, the child's shoulders rise and fall in shallow, uneven breaths, each one fragile, like it might not come again if the night presses any harder. Ethan lowers himself slowly to one knee, careful, controlled, as if sudden movement might break something already too delicate. He does not reach out right away. His hand hovers in the cold air, inches from the child's shoulder, suspended between instinct and hesitation. He has touched too many things that did not come back. That memory lingers, quiet but present. Rex shifts beside him, closer now, his body angled slightly toward Ethan, not blocking, not pushing, just there. Steady, grounded. The dog lowers himself into a sit, his gaze moving from the child to Ethan and back again, as if reminding him of something without words. Ethan exhales slowly, the breath visible in the cold, then finally lets his hand move forward. His fingers brush lightly against the child's shoulder. Warm, faint, but there. Not gone. The contact is enough to break something inside him. Not violently, not all at once, but like a crack forming in something he thought had already hardened beyond repair. The child stirs. Just a small movement, a shift of weight, a soft sound that barely escapes her lips. Ethan leans in slightly, his voice low, unfamiliar in its gentleness. Hey, can you hear me? No response. Only the same fragile rhythm of breath. He glances around, scanning the darkness between the trees, searching for anything that might explain how she got here. There are no footprints he can see, no signs of movement beyond the shallow disturbance where her body rests. No bag, no light, nothing, just her. The isolation of it settles heavily in his chest. This is not an accident. It cannot be. People do not end up here without a reason. But whatever that reason is, it is not here now. Rex lowers his head slightly, his nose moving closer to the child's hand. He inhales once, then pulls back, as if confirming something only he understands. Ethan watches him, the question forming without words. Why here? Why now? And why him? He looks back down at the child. Her face is pale, but not lifeless. There is softness there, a quiet resilience beneath the cold, like something still holding on despite everything around it. Ethan's jaw tightens. This is where he decides. He knows that. Not in some distant future, not after thinking it through. Right here. Right now. He can stand up. Walk back. Close the door. Let the night take what it brought. The silence would return. The routine would hold. Nothing would change. But something inside him already has. He does not question it anymore. Not the way he used to question everything. Slowly, carefully, Ethan slides one arm beneath the child's shoulders, the other under her legs. She is lighter than he expects. Too light. The kind of weight that tells a story without words. As he lifts her, her head shifts against his chest, a small breath escaping her lips, warmer now, closer. Her fingers curl slightly into the fabric of his jacket, not gripping, just resting, as if even in unconsciousness, she knows she is no longer on the ground. Ethan stands, adjusting his hold, keeping her close to his body, shielding what little warmth he can offer from the cold pressing in around them. Rex rises immediately, stepping in beside him, his position now different. Not leading, not searching, guarding. Ethan takes a slow breath, steadying himself, then turns back toward the direction of the cabin. The path is not visible, but he knows it. He memorized it long ago, when leaving was easier than staying. Now, each step feels different. He is not walking away from something. He is carrying something back. And for the first time in a long while, the silence behind him does not feel like safety. It feels like something he is finally leaving behind. The walk back feels longer than it should. Every step presses deeper into the ground, not because the path has changed, but because the weight in Ethan's arms has. It is not heavy in pounds, not something that strains muscle or balance. It is something else, something that settles into his chest with each breath, reminding him that this is real, that this is happening, and that there is no clean way to undo it. The child's head rests against him, her small body curled instinctively toward the warmth he provides. Her breathing is still uneven, but it has softened, no longer as fragile as it was on the cold forest floor. Each exhale brushes faintly against his jacket, a quiet rhythm that feels out of place, and yet necessary. Rex moves close at his side, no longer ahead, no longer guiding. His pace matches Ethan's exactly, step for step, as if the role has shifted without command. The forest remains still around them, the darkness unchanged, but it does not feel the same anymore. It feels watched, not in danger, not in threat, just aware, as if the trees themselves have taken note of what has passed between them. Ethan keeps his eyes forward, his jaw set, focusing on the path he knows by memory rather than sight. The cabin is not far. He can feel it before he sees it, that familiar pull of structure in a place that offers none. A line between isolation and whatever lies beyond it. The faint outline of the roof appears through the trees first, then the walls, then the soft glow of dying firelight through the window. It looks the same as it always has. Unchanged. Waiting. He steps onto the small clearing, boots pressing into the thin layer of dirt and pine needles that surround the cabin. The door stands slightly open, just as he left it, a dark shape against the faint light inside. For a moment, he stops. Not because he does not know what to do next, but because he understands that crossing this threshold again will not be the same as before. The silence inside is no longer empty. It has already been altered. He shifts the child slightly in his arms, adjusting his grip so she is more secure, more protected from the cold that still clings to her clothes. Her fingers move again, faint and slow, brushing against his jacket as if reaching for something she cannot see. Ethan exhales, long and steady, then steps forward. The moment he crosses back into the cabin, the air changes. Warmer. Still, but not quiet in the same way. There is sound now, even if it is small. The soft rustle of fabric. The subtle movement of breath that does not belong to him. He nudges the door closed with his foot, the wood meeting the frame with a muted thud that echoes lightly through the room. Rex enters just behind him, turning once near the door before settling into a low stance, his eyes still alert, still tracking everything that moves, even now. Ethan moves toward the bed without hesitation. There is no plan beyond this moment. No thought beyond what is directly in front of him. He lowers himself carefully, easing the child down onto the narrow mattress, his movements slower than they need to be, as if the act itself requires precision. The blanket is thin, but it is all he has. He pulls it over her gently, tucking it around her shoulders, trying to hold in what little warmth the room can offer. The child stirs again, her brow tightening slightly, a soft sound escaping her lips. Not fear, not pain, just awareness. Ethan pauses, his hand still resting lightly on the edge of the blanket. He watches her for a moment longer than necessary, as if waiting for something more, some sign, some explanation that will make this make sense. None comes. Only the steady rise and fall of her chest, stronger now, more certain. Rex moves closer, his presence quiet but intentional. He lowers himself beside the bed, his head resting near the child's feet, positioning himself without instruction, without question. Guarding. Always guarding. Ethan straightens slowly, stepping back just enough to take in the small space that once held nothing but absence. Now there is something here. Something fragile. Something alive. The fire in the stove crackles faintly, the sound soft but persistent, filling the gaps that silence once occupied completely. Ethan reaches up instinctively, his fingers brushing against the dog tag at his chest. The metal is cool against his skin, familiar in a way that nothing else has been for a long time. He lets it fall back into place without looking at it. His gaze remains on the child, on the shift that has already begun, whether he is ready for it or not. And for the first time since he chose this place, the silence does not feel like something he controls. It feels like something that has been broken open, quietly, without force, and replaced with something he does not yet understand, but cannot ignore. Time moves differently inside the cabin now. It does not stretch into empty hours the way it used to. It gathers instead, around the bed, around the small rise and fall of a chest that should not be here and yet is. Ethan does not sit back down in his chair. He does not return to the window. He remains where he is, a few steps away, as if moving too far might somehow undo what has already been done. The fire in the stove burns low, its glow soft and uneven, casting a quiet warmth that barely reaches the corners of the room. It is enough. For now, it is enough. The child shifts again beneath the blanket, her breathing deeper now, more stable, though still marked by the cold. She has not fully escaped. A faint crease forms between her brows, like she is caught somewhere between sleep and waking, not yet certain which direction to move. Ethan watches closely, his eyes tracing every small change, every subtle movement. He has learned to read signs like this before, not in cabins, not in quiet places. But the skill remains, buried beneath everything else. Rex does not move from his place beside the bed. His body is still, but not relaxed. His ears flick occasionally, catching sounds Ethan cannot hear, or perhaps no longer tries to. The dog's gaze rests on the child with a focus that is steady, unwavering, as if he has accepted this responsibility fully without question. Ethan takes a slow breath and moves closer, the floorboards creaking softly beneath him. He crouches beside the bed, lowering himself until he is level with her, close enough to see the fine details he missed before. Dirt faintly marks her hands, small scratches along her fingers that look more like the result of moving through brush than anything else. Her hair is tangled, light strands catching the glow of the fire, framing a face that is too young to carry the kind of distance he saw in the forest. She should not have been there. That truth settles again, heavier this time. He studies her jacket more closely, noticing the worn seams, the loose stitching near the collar, the way it hangs slightly uneven on her frame. It does not belong to her. Not originally. It is too large, meant for someone older, someone who is not here. Ethan's jaw tightens, but he says nothing. There is no one to ask. No answer waiting in the room. The child exhales softly, and then her eyes open. It happens slowly, as if the act itself requires effort. Pale blue, clouded at first with confusion, then sharpening just enough to take in what is in front of her. She does not move right away. She simply looks at the ceiling, at the dim light, and then at him. Ethan holds still, completely. The instinct to speak rises and stops at the same time, caught somewhere between habit and something he no longer trusts. The child blinks once, twice, her gaze steadying as it settles on his face. There is no immediate fear there, no sudden reaction. Just a quiet searching, as if she is trying to place him into a space that makes sense. Her lips part slightly, but no words come at first. Only a small breath, warmer now, more certain than before. Ethan feels something shift again, deeper this time, not sharp, not overwhelming, but undeniable. He has avoided this moment for a long time. The moment where another set of eyes looks at him and expects something in return. He does not know what that something is anymore. He is not sure he ever did. The child's hand moves slowly beneath the blanket, emerging just enough to rest against the edge of the mattress. Small fingers, still trembling slightly, but purposeful now. She lifts her hand a fraction, not reaching for anything specific, Just reaching. Ethan hesitates. Just for a second. Then, slowly, carefully, he places his hand over hers. The contact is light, almost uncertain, but it is enough. Her fingers curl slightly around his, not tight, not desperate, just enough to hold. The room remains quiet, but it is no longer empty. It is filled with something fragile and new, something that does not demand to be understood right away. Rex shifts subtly, settling deeper into his place beside the bed, his eyes softening just enough to reflect the change he senses. Ethan does not look away from the child. He does not pull his hand back. And in that small, quiet moment, without any words spoken, something begins to return to him. Not all at once, not fully, but enough to remind him that silence was never meant to be the only thing left. The contact lingers longer than either of them expects. Her small fingers remain wrapped loosely around his, not gripping, not pulling, just holding as if confirming that he is real and not something that will disappear when she blinks again. Ethan does not move. He does not even shift his weight. The moment feels too delicate, like something that could fracture if handled too quickly. The fire cracks softly behind him, a low, steady sound that fills the spaces where silence once lived without interruption. The child studies him in a quiet way, her eyes clearer now, the confusion fading into something more focused. There is a question there, not spoken, but present all the same. Not who are you? Not where am I? Something simpler. Something deeper. Are you staying? Ethan swallows, the motion slow, almost reluctant. He has not answered that question in a long time. Not for anyone. Not even for himself. Her hand shifts slightly in his, her fingers tightening just a fraction, enough to draw him back into the moment when his thoughts begin to drift too far. He exhales, steadying himself, and lowers his voice, careful, measured, as if each word needs to be placed exactly right. You are safe, he says. The sentence is simple, but it carries more weight than it should. It is not just for her. It lands in the room and stays there, settling into the wood, the walls, the space that has not held words like that in a very long time. The child blinks slowly, absorbing the sound, the tone, the meaning behind it. Her gaze softens, just slightly, the tension in her small frame easing by degrees that are almost impossible to notice unless you are watching as closely as he is. Rex shifts his position at the foot of the bed, lowering his head fully now, his body relaxing into the floorboards for the first time since they returned. His ears remain alert, but the edge of urgency has faded. Whatever he sensed before, it is no longer here. Or it has changed. Ethan notices it without looking directly. The shift in the room is subtle, but real. The urgency has passed. What remains is quieter, deeper. The child's eyes drift briefly toward Rex, taking in the shape of the dog, the steady presence at her feet. There is no fear in the way she looks at him, only recognition, as if she already understands something about him that does not need to be explained. Her gaze returns to Ethan, slower this time, more certain. Her lips part again, and this time a word forms. Soft, almost too quiet to hear. Cold. It is barely more than a breath, but it lands clearly. Ethan nods once, immediate, instinctive. I know, he answers, his voice low, steady. He reaches for the edge of the blanket and adjusts it more securely around her shoulders, tucking it in gently, making sure no space is left for the cold to slip through. The action is careful, deliberate, as if he has done it before, though he cannot remember when. The child watches him as he does it, her eyes following every movement, not with suspicion, but with a kind of quiet attention that feels older than she is. When he finishes, her hand shifts again, still holding on to his, anchoring him there. Ethan does not pull away. He cannot. Not now. Not after everything that has already changed. The room settles into a new rhythm. The fire. The breath. The faint sound of fabric moving as she adjusts beneath the blanket. It is not silence anymore. It is something else. Something that fills instead of empties. The child's eyelids grow heavier, the effort of staying awake pulling against the warmth that is finally reaching her. She blinks slower now, her grip on his hand loosening but not disappearing. Her body relaxes into the mattress, her breathing evening out into something closer to rest than survival. Ethan remains where he is, his hand still resting in hers, his posture unchanged. He does not look at the door. He does not think about the forest. For the first time since stepping outside, His focus is not on what is out there, but on what is here. What has been placed in front of him, quietly, without force, without explanation. And as the child drifts closer to sleep, her fingers still lightly wrapped around his, Ethan feels something unfamiliar settle into the space he once filled with silence. Not noise, not chaos. Something softer, something steady, something that does not ask him to be who he was before, but does not allow him to remain who he has been. And in that quiet, fragile shift, he understands something he has avoided for far too long. Some things are not meant to be kept out. Some things are meant to find you, even in the deepest silence. The night settles deeper around the cabin, but inside, something has shifted that the darkness cannot reclaim. The fire burns lower now, its glow softer, stretching long shadows across the walls that no longer feel empty. Ethan remains seated beside the bed, his back slightly bent, his hand still loosely held in the small, warm grip that has not fully let go. The child sleeps more peacefully now, her breathing steady, her face no longer tight with the strain of cold and uncertainty. There is a quiet in the room, but it is no longer the kind that isolates. It is the kind that listens. Ethan studies her in the dim light, taking in the details he did not allow himself to see before. The softness in her expression, the way her hair falls gently across her forehead, the faint movement of her lips as if she is dreaming something that does not belong to fear. He does not know her name. He does not know where she came from. But somehow, those questions do not rise the way they should. Not yet, because something else sits in their place. Something simpler. She is here, and he did not walk away. Rex shifts slightly at the foot of the bed, his body relaxed now, his breathing slow and even. His watch is not over, but it has changed. It is no longer about searching. It is about staying. Ethan glances at him briefly, the smallest acknowledgement passing between them. No command, no instruction, just understanding. The kind that does not need to be spoken. Ethan's gaze returns to the child, and for the first time, he allows himself to notice something he has been avoiding. The room does not feel like a place to hide anymore. It feels like a place that has been given purpose. The chair by the window remains where it always was, untouched. The dog tag rests against his chest, still and familiar. The walls have not changed. And yet, everything has. He shifts slightly, easing his hand from hers with care, slow enough not to disturb her sleep. Her fingers tighten for a brief second, then relax, settling back against the blanket. Ethan watches to make sure she does not wake. When she does not, he stands quietly, his movements measured, respectful of the fragile peace that has settled into the room. He moves to the stove, adding a small piece of wood, adjusting the flame just enough to keep the warmth steady through the night. The fire responds. With a soft crackle, a gentle rise of light that fills the space without overwhelming it. When he turns back, he pauses. The sight before him is simple. A small figure resting safely on a narrow bed. A loyal dog keeping silent watch. And a room that no longer echoes with absence. Ethan takes a slow breath, deeper than any he has taken since stepping into this place weeks ago. It does not catch halfway. It does not tighten in his chest. It settles fully, steady and real. He walks back to the bed, not out of obligation, not out of uncertainty, but because he chooses to. He lowers himself into the chair this time, not by the window, but closer. Close enough to hear every breath. Close enough to remain present. The night moves forward, minute by minute, quiet and unhurried. Outside, the forest remains as it was. Dark, vast, unchanging. But inside the cabin, something has begun that does not belong to the night at all. The child shifts slightly in her sleep, her hand moving again, not searching now, just resting where it falls. Rex lifts his head briefly, watching, then lowers it again, satisfied. Ethan leans back in the chair, his eyes no longer fixed on the distance, but on what is right in front of him. He does not know what tomorrow will bring. He does not know who will come looking, or if anyone will. He does not know how this fits into the life he tried to leave behind. But for the first time, those unknowns do not feel like threats. They feel like something he can face, something he can step toward instead of away from. The silence is still there. It has not disappeared, but it no longer feels like the end of something. It feels like the beginning of something he had forgotten was possible. And as the fire continues to burn low and steady, and the small room holds the quiet rhythm of breath and presence, Ethan understands without needing to say it out loud. He did not lose everything out there. Not entirely. Because sometimes, what is meant to be found does not arrive with noise or warning. It arrives quietly, carried through the dark, placed gently in your hands. And it stays, not because you asked for it, but because you finally chose not to let it go.